Hey everybody, welcome to Outside Michigan. I'm Russ Martin, along with my buddy Dave Turner from David's Passage on YouTube, out for a overnighter here in the Lost Nation State Game Area in southern Michigan, or extreme southern Michigan as I like to call it. We packed out. I brought my sled with me, although I think today I brought the lightest pack I've ever brought out for a winter camp. I didn't put that much in the sled. I put some water in the sled and my saw and axe. Mostly I brought that out so we could transport firewood, but the spot that we picked is pretty much abundant with firewood. I took down a tree over here that was leaning over one of my favorite camp spots. We ended up not camping there because of that tree. Picked this spot here. We're going to set up in kind of a V configuration, and I'll show you that later. Dave's going here. I'm going there, and our fire's going to go kind of in between us. We're going to use hammocks, a couple different styles of setups. But for right now, we're getting firewood, working on that, and then we'll put up our shelters, and kind of looking forward to using the axe and the saw. I haven't been able to do that since last year. Here we are, Dave and I sitting around the fire. I don't know if you can see me or not. It's kind of dark, but yeah, we didn't have much time to do any filming earlier. But we got our lawn fire. I've got my still probably can't see that, but my hillbilly super shelter there. Figure we'll keep pretty warm tonight. It's about, what was it, Dave? About 20 degrees, 22 degrees? About 20 degrees out here. It's going to get a bit colder overnight. Right now we're just trying to get a good hot bed of coals in that fire. We lucked out and took down a nice big chunk of powder wood. It was wet up about the top of the first 10-15 feet, but above that it was completely dry and powdery, and that's going to burn really fast, make us a nice bed of coals, and then we'll throw some more punky wood on there to kind of keep things going through the overnight. But we'll check back in the morning. Well, the first morning and the last morning of the first winter camp of 2013, out here with my buddy Dave Turner. We both used similar but different setups last night to sleep. It got down around maybe 15 degrees, and we both stayed relatively warm. Dave used, we both used the ENO double nest hammocks. Dave used the Kelty Noah's tarp, just kind of turned that to block the wind. Three-piece GI-MSS sleep system. Said he stayed pretty warm all night. And then I built kind of a sort of a super shelter. If you watch my video on semi-permanent hunting camp, I had said at that point I was going to get a larger tarp. I want to get a 12 by 20 tarp that I can bring down both sides and across the back. Well, I didn't get that tarp. I'm still using the 8 by 10. So what I did was bought a sheet of 10 by 25 plastic to kind of augment that. And then this is my sheet of 9 by 12 that I use whenever I camp with a lean-to. This is my first winter camp with the hammock. I used this back in November during deer camp, but didn't get quite as cold then. But this system really worked. I stayed warm all night last night. In fact, at bedtime we had our fire going, had it going pretty hot. We had a long fire here. When I first got in bed, I was sweating. I had to throw the blankets off, throw the sleeping bag off. I'm using the same system that Dave's using. I was really happy with that setup. The one thing about this thing is it was kind of makeshift, and I don't think it would have held up to the wind. But where we're camping here against this hill, we're kind of in a hollow here. The wind was howling. I mean, just 50 feet away. If you walk 50 feet in either direction, you'd walk into a wind, you know, that was 15, 20 miles per hour sustained, and with gusts up around 25, 30 miles an hour. But right in here, the wind stayed pretty calm. And so we picked a good spot to camp. But I guess that goes to show you, you know, if you're out and about, and if you're camping, just moving just a little bit can make a huge difference. But really like this spot right here, and I think we'll camp here again. But gonna have a little breakfast and head out in just a little while. All right, as Dave and I are tearing down here to head home, I thought I'd give you just a quick look at my my shelter that I built last night. It's kind of improvised. All I have, the only tarp I have, is an 8 by 10. I got to pick up a bigger tarp, so it really isn't big enough to make an enclosed shelter around my hammock. Now I have used it in a diamond shape where I, you know, tied it out, tied the
an end at each end of my ridge pole, and then had a diamond sticking out, but it's kind of hard to enclose that shape. So what I did here is I just put it with the 8-foot, or the 10-foot going the length of my hammock, with the 8-foot going down, which of course didn't reach the ground. You can see there, that doesn't go all the way to the ground. But because I knew we were going to be spending the night out here, I wanted an enclosed shelter. We had a long fire. Kept my shelter about 45-50 degrees all night, even without a good reflector. At one point we had some of our wetter logs stacked up behind the fire to kind of dry them out. But those went into the fire around midnight, 1 o'clock. So what I did is I went to Walmart and I just bought a 10 by 25 sheet of plastic. My tarp is an 8 by 10, but it's not really. Nominally, I think it's like 7.5 by 9.5 or something like that. But I took this sheet of plastic, and 10 by 25 was just about the right size. The way to hold that down is to take logs and just kind of roll them up at the base all the way around it. And then you can see it's billowing out with air right now, but before I took my front cover off there, I had a 9 by 12 sheet of 7/10 of a mil, which is kind of thin and not really reusable in a situation like this. But I put that up, and then I used duct tape to kind of hold this plastic over the edge. And overnight, it didn't billow out like this. It didn't start doing this until I just took the front cover off of it. But I kept toasty warm last night. It got down to about 15 degrees. When I crawled into my shelter, I'm going to say it was 55-60 degrees in there. Plenty warm, too warm for the clothes I was wearing. You can see there the log holding this side down. As long as you hold the plastic tight, you shouldn't have too much trouble with the wind. We were fortunate last night. We picked a good spot out of the wind. We got this hill in the woods to shelter us there. But just 50 to 75 feet in either direction was a wind tunnel last night, so we picked a good spot. But I really do like this style of shelter. I think what I'm going to do is buy a tarp that's 10 by 25 or 12 by 30 or something like that, because I use the sled to get out here. Winter's time, one of the reasons I really like camping in the winter with the snow is because, you know, I don't I come out here to have a good time, and I could just come out with a pack. I could probably get by with it, but in the winter time with the sled, I can bring a little bit more gear and kind of make myself comfortable out here and have a good night, a good time, kind of get away from all of it. And that's why I'm thinking it's either a bigger tarp or a wall tent with a wood stove. I think the tent and the stove is just going to be a bit much for me. This with the long fire lay and a sheet of clear plastic, the Morris Kohansky style super shelter really works out well. I've used this a few times out here. This is my first time with a hammock. I was a little worried I'd get cold on my underside, but I put a mylar blanket, I put a wool blanket in the bottom of my hammock, threw a mylar blanket on top of that, and then put my 3-piece MSS in there, and my backside was the side that stayed the warmest, and no part of me got cold. I was comfortable all night. In fact, I was a little bit too warm at first, but this really works, and it's cheap. I can get a poly tarp for, you know, a 12 by 30 even poly tarp for less than 30 bucks if I buy it at Walmart or TSC. You can buy a much higher quality tarp if you want. Truth is, for me, for this situation, I don't really need the more expensive one, especially if I'm using the sled, because I can handle the weight with the sled. But if you're thinking about, you know, camping out in the winter in the cold, you know, when Dave and I told everybody we were coming out here, the term "you're crazy" was used a lot. But really, it's not that crazy if you think about it. You know, it's 15 degrees is kind of cold, but they're, you know, if you got the right tools and the right mindset and the right skills, coming out here and spending the night in the winter really is not only is it relatively easy, it's actually a lot of fun.